So good morning to you all. I'm very pleased to be here and to speak about platform work. What I would like to do is to do it in two steps. First, I would like to speak about the directive that we have put forward at EU level, and then to see how this reflects on Southeastern Europe and the accession negotiations for the countries of the Western Balkans. So, as you may know, that earlier this year, the European Parliament and the Council reached political agreement on the directive to improve working conditions in platform work. We see this as really a very important step forward to improve the working conditions and data rights for people that work on digital labor platforms. We see this as a game changer to tackle false self-employment. And why we think it's also important, because we have seen that there have been over 700 court cases, court decisions in the EU on the employment status of people working through platforms. And this shows there is a need for bringing more clarity for people that perform platform work. And the directive as such is also a world premiere, I would say, because it establishes the first ever set of rules to deal with the role of algorithms in the workplace. And so just let me start by giving you a few figures about digital labor platform economy in Europe, so that you understand why we have gone forward with this act. So first of all, because the digital labor economy is growing very, very fast. Between 2016 and 2020, it grew almost fivefold, from an estimated 3 billion to around 14 billion euros. So it's something that is expanding. And currently, we estimate that there are over 500 digital labor platforms operating within the EU. In the study, you will be able to look into the study that prepared we call it impact assessment, the legislative proposal. We found that there were 28 million people working in the EU through digital labor platforms in 2020. And this number is obviously steadily growing. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of these people are genuine self-employed, but we also estimate that about 5 million could be incorrectly classified as self-employed. And another important figure is that half of the people working through platform earn less than the minimum wage. So against this background, the directive, the aim of the directive is to improve the working conditions and data protection in platform work, and at the same time support the opportunities, innovation and flexibility that the platform economy offers. And I think there an important point to make is that during the preparation of the proposal and then in the negotiation, I think the most important thing that everybody tried to aim at is to achieve a balance between protection of workers, but also allowing this new business model to develop. And that's why also for companies, it's important to have the rules clearly set out, because we see that there are several court cases, and this creates legal uncertainty. And we know that for companies, legal uncertainty is not a good thing. Mm-hmm. So that's also the reasoning to find a way that workers are protected on one side, but also companies have the right environment to develop and to produce more innovation. So, challenges. So what I already said, that challenges can in the platform economy range from misclassification of people's employment status to lack of transparency of the algorithms that companies use to manage people, and the predictability of work opportunities, as well as health and safety risks. The directive aims to make it easier to correctly determine the employment status of platform workers by requiring member states to establish a rebuttable legal presumption of an employment relationship. This presumption should allow people working through digital labor platform to have easier access to a reclassification when the employment status corresponds to their actual work arrangements. This will help people to access the full set of labor and social rights they are entitled to, including minimum wage in the countries where it is existing, collective bargaining, working time, and so on. So in one word, to ensure that people that work in the through a digital labor platform have the same rights they would have if they were working in the traditional, in the brick and mortar economy. The directive will also provide more transparency, fairness, and accountability with regards to algorithmic management on digital labor platforms by helping people to better understand how tasks are allocated, prices are set, and enable them to contest decisions that affect working conditions if needed. I think this was also one point that was discussed yesterday. The directive will also improve enforcement and traceability of platform work, including in cross-border situations, by asking platforms to declare work in the country where it is performed and make available to national authorities specific information about the people who work through them and their terms of condition. Finally, also extremely important, the directive will strengthen collective bargaining and social dialogue. The directive requires digital labor platforms to inform and consult platform workers' representatives on algorithmic management decisions. It asks digital labor platforms to provide communication channels for people working through them to organize themselves and to be contacted by workers' representatives, because that's the issue. They work through an algorithm, they don't know who else works for the same platform. So where are we now in this process? We have reached a political agreement on the draft platform directive. These were 2 long years of negotiations between the Council and the European Parliament. The directive was supported in the end by 25 out of 27 member states, and this sends a very important signal. On the Parliament side, it was approved by a very broad majority, 554 votes, with 56 against and 24 abstentions. So you can see it was quite a broadly supported legislation. So we are not there yet. So it's not yet agreed and formally adopted. This will only happen when the new parliament will be in place. You know, we have on the 9th, between 6th and 9th of May, European elections, which will be we will have through that a new parliament, and it will be once the new parliament is in place that we directive will be formally agreed, and from that point on, 2 years for the transposition period will start counting. So let me now come on. I spoke about the rebuttable legal presumptions. Now let me speak a bit about the algorithmic management in platform work, because I think this is really the key features of the digital labor platforms. The fact that everything goes through an algorithm. So Because, yes, and this is what we call algorithmic management. So an automated system which monitors the workers' performance and which takes decisions that affect their working conditions. So and in our view, it was necessary to ensure that algorithmic management is transparent, fair, and in line with the human in control principle. So I think this is really the human-centered approach, the human in control. This is really the principle that inspires the European Union when it comes to AI, algorithmic management, and future of work in general, digitalization in general. So what concretely will this directive bring? Well, first of all, it will allow platform workers to be better informed about the use of the automated systems, what they monitor, and how they take the decisions that affect them. The digital labor platform oversee and evaluate the effects of such systems on working conditions. And it will also ensure that platform workers can have important automated decisions checked by humans. And this is really an important point. There are some important clear red lines in the directive as well. So AI should not be used to predict which workers are most likely to unionize or to organize a strike. Platforms cannot spy on private conversations or collect data from workers when they are not logged into the app. And platform workers cannot be fired by an algorithm. So we see the directive as setting very important guardrails on how automation should be used in the world of work. Now, this directive on improving working conditions in digital labor platforms doesn't stand alone in the EU legislative framework, because there are two important legislations that it complements. So the General Data Protection Regulation and the AI Act, the Artificial Intelligence Act that was already mentioned. So why did we need to complement with this directive? First, the General Data Protection Regulation. Because, of course, this regulation on data protection already provides workers with important information on rights and safeguards for automated decision-making. But often they are worded in a rather general terms, leaving room for interpretation on how it applies concretely. It was therefore necessary to clarify those rights. In similar fashion, the AI Act is in a similar fashion, the AI Act will be indispensable to tackle the risks that emerge when AI is developed. Most AI systems used by employers under the AI Act will be classified as high risk and therefore fall under the AI Act requirements. However, this act will not address every emerging issue due to the application of artificial intelligence in the workplace. It addresses more about how AI systems are developed and put on the market, and less about how they are used in practice. So, just to make an example, according to the AI Act, providers of high-risk AI systems must ensure that the systems can be overseen by humans. However, it does not mandate how this human oversight should be carried out. Or, if an algorithm meets all the requirements set out in the AI Act for high-risk applications, if it is used to assess workers' performance through continuous automated monitoring, it could still cause harm. It could cause severe stress or mental health issues. So this is what the directive does. It clarifies, it goes a bit further, clarifying what this means for the worker. So it takes the worker's perspective. So let me now come to what is the relevance for Western Balkan countries and how Southeast Europe. I think there are three main reasons why these developments, EU developments on platform work and AI in the workplace are important. First of all, as we heard, we all face the same challenges that arise from digitalization of the workplace as those in the EU. And I've heard about the challenges about skills also. We face the same labor shortages and the same skills shortages. So we are in the same boat, let's say, because these are global trends, and they have impacts everywhere. So it's good that companies are resorting to algorithms and AI to recruit people and manage the workforce. This can have positive effects, but of course, this has also, we need to look at the challenges that this brings. Platform work can bring more flexibility for working on platforms and on the possibility to have an additional income, but only if it is used in the right way. It can bring benefits to companies and workers if it is used in the right way. So higher productivity, fairer, more objective management decision, and better monitoring of workers' health and safety are important. But there are also clear risks arising from platform work and algorithmic management. These include misclassification, which I mentioned already, opacity of decision-making system, if you don't know how a decision has been taken that affects you personally, and lack of human oversight and risks for health and safety. And I think these are the challenges we all face wherever we are. And as I said before, the European Union approach has been always to find the right balance between promoting innovation and investment in new technology on one side and protecting workers on the other. The second reason why I think this is also important is because, as we have heard, countries are in the EU access process will have to align to the EU acquis. And this is also emphasized in the new growth plan for the Western Balkans and its facility. And therefore, it's relevant that national administration get acquainted with legislative developments at early stages. And I think the technical assistance and TAIEX supports public administration to the approximation, application, and enforcement of EU legislation, as well as facilitating the sharing of best practices. And I encourage you obviously to use this tool. The third and final reason, and you will hear it directly from the colleague of the International Labour Organization from ILO, is that in 25 and 26 at the ILO, an international standard on platform work will be negotiated. And this also clarifies the fact that actually platform work is prominent across the world. It becomes increasingly clear there are gaps also in the international labor standards, which needs platform workers. And we hope that the excellent cooperation we have with you will extend to the standard setting discussions on platform work as well. And Anna Rosa Pesole will certainly, I don't see her now where she is, but she will certainly tell us all about it later today. So, in conclusion, I think new technologies and artificial intelligence in particular are bound to change our labor market. This is absolutely clear to everybody. And there is no point in actually trying to stop or to prevent that from happening. On the contrary, the approach should be to embrace the digital transformation of the workplace and shape it in a direction that is beneficial both for employers and for workers. Our aim should be to ensure transparent and fair working conditions for people active in the platform economy, while supporting the sustainable growth of digital labor platforms in the EU. So more generally, we think that for the use of algorithms, including in more traditional workplaces, we must aim to really ensure fairness, transparency, safety, and the human in control principle that I spoke about, while preserving innovation and investment. And I think it is very important to get that balance right. Thank you. I understand I am now open to questions. So please, if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
I will also join. So if there are any questions, so
please come here.
Myself, please.
We have one question.
Thank you for your speech, both. They were fascinating. A question for you, Mrs. Manuela. I'm interested, how did you calculate 5 million platform workers who are misclassified? Because 700 court cases indicate that EU member states encounter difficulties in defining what is employment relationship. So this might be the problem. And the second question is, hundreds and hundreds of studies show that platform work is not in favor of the workers and the society. So how do you justify the encouragement of friendly business environment for the platforms? Thank you.
So on the first question, I think I would have to go back to the impact assessment and to look at that. But I think 700 cases refer to single individuals. So it's if you calculate the amount that these companies would probably bring to that, I think we come to that figure. So the estimation is between 1.5 to 5.5 million. So this is an estimate that we think, but so you also see that if the overall amount of people that are working are 28 million, it's not everyone that is falsely classified, misclassified. It's a section of those. And this is also important to understand, that the idea is not to abolish self-employment, not at all. It's just to make sure that those that are not genuinely self-employed should be reclassified as workers because they don't fall in the category of self-employed. And on your second question, can you please come back?
The happiness of platform work on workers and societies.
If I understood correctly, your question was about why should we be friendly to businesses? Well, I think businesses are important, right? Because if there are no business, there is no work. If there is no work, there is no way you can sustain yourself. So, and I think platform economy has offered opportunities to a number of people that were not on the labor market. So I think it can also be seen as a way to bring people into the labor market that were prior not on the labor market. And finally, it's a new way of working. And I think we should not stop this innovation because we are in a global world, so we cannot just stop it for a certain number of countries. We live in the same boat. So the most important thing I would see is to ensure that we create a good business environment for companies to further develop, but at the same time, this has to go hand in hand with ensuring that those that perform platform work have the rights that they would normally have if they were working outside the digital economy.
One more question.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you very much for your presentations. I would like to ask if there is any consideration for the data collected by the platforms in terms of workers and working conditions, because in traditional labor markets, when it is offline, we have the right to go and ask to the companies on how many workers they are hiring, what is the average wage paid, what are the average working hours. We have even business censuses that collect all these working life related information from the traditional employers. But when it comes to platforms, actually they collect more than ever data in terms of working habits, all kinds of things. That is an enormous level of data which can be used and abused. But we cannot know if they are abused if we don't know to what extent they collect data. I know the data protection law and all the rules, but I think there is also this missing part of data, which is how governments can get access to these working related data of the platforms so that we can also analyze them better. So is there any consideration? It's a question also for the minister from the ministry. I think this is really not discussed very much in this political circles yet, but data is the new gold or new oil, as they say. So how do we deal with this enormous amount of data collected? Thank you.
Okay, so thank you for this question, because actually this allows me to come back to a chapter in the directive that it's precisely about that. It's transparency of platform work. And there it's clearly set out that member states shall require digital labor platforms to declare work performed by platform workers to the competent authorities of the member states in which the work is performed. So this is very clear, and the directive sets also out what type of relevant information on platform work has to be delivered by the platforms. So this is very clearly stated in the directive, and of course in the chapter of algorithmic management, it's very clear what kind of information can be collected and shared, and the worker the person performing platform work should know what the data that is being collected, and on the other hand, it also sets out clearly the data that should not be collected. And I mentioned this already, for instance, private conversations, for instance, or so on. So I think this is the balance that the directive tried to achieve.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for I also didn't know about the chapters of the Act, and this is very good to hear. I think topic is wider actually than platform work. We have yes, data is the new gold. And we learned it through seeing companies making hundreds of billions of value in 10 years. It never happened before. That happened due to the data. Actually, not new technology. Actually, ability to gather and use the data. My personal opinion, have to say for the official, I would have to wait for the smarter people than me to deal with the topic and to try to find the solution for the problem, because the personal opinion is not horizontal restrictive measures. We should allow businesses and companies and people to to explore ideas, etc. But I would think that transparency in the data collection and I don't know the word for obrada in the moment. Data collection and processing, transparency in what the companies are doing would be important. So if you ask me, as someone who does participate in the preparation of the legislation act and does look out of the box of the EU text and look for the additional things, we would insist probably on transparency of the process, and create an institutional capacity that could not supervise in terms of commanding what to do, but supervise in terms of being aware of what they are doing, and then only react in terms of they said they are doing something and in practice they are doing something else. But from the perspective of implementation, this is quite challenging. This is partially related to cybersecurity area, which we do have jurisdiction in the ministry, and we insist on the set of rules related to the cybersecurity in the company. They say we are doing this. It's very, very hard, and very hard to secure the capacity in the institutions to have people that will be able to go there and check. So in many cases it happens as incident response and not in preventive manner like it should be. But then I think, again, because we speak about platforms, about most powerful people in the world, we should also, in a way, high on the level of conscience and the and awareness of the importance of the proper use of data. And there are good examples, there are also bad examples. Almost infinite topic. Thank you very much for a great question.
So we have 2 more questions here, and that will be the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ministers, for your excellent interventions. So my question has to do with, in fact, the transposition of the Platform Work Directive, and also as we're going through the phases with the AI Act. And it's very much linked with your point, and this has to do with business orientation and proportionality, which you asked. And my curiosity is because a lot of the implication around how the applications will need to occur will have direct effect on human resources and on the employment relationship in terms of not just what a contract looks like, but also what can be expected in the workplace. And again, very much around how specifically technologies are oriented and applied, which will very quickly have some potential implications. And my question specifically about the human in the loop. So one thing that is mentioned a little bit in Article 14, which humans are going to be understood as having had the kind of training and the necessary kind of status to be that human in the loop, because I think that will really matter. That's the first thing, because who will then pay for the kinds of training that will need to occur, the kind of new certification schemes and these kinds of things. So the second question is very much linked with the question around the semi-automated decision-making processes. And if it is the case that we're expecting the human who's in the loop, or the human who's in command apparently, to be the one that checks that decision. So it occurs to me, why are we not looking at other ways of preventing racism, sexism, discrimination, all the kinds of things that we are finding algorithms are being attributed as having those kind of characteristics and within their own supposed potential agency. So if that's the case, why are we not saying that humans could be the ones who are in fact not checking the decision of the technology, but the other way around? Could it not be that the algorithm is designed itself to weed out where the kinds of discrimination and other features within the employment relationship, within, the work context is occurring? So that's kind of one of my radical points. But back to the very procedural kind of and very imminently important question has to do with who's going to be paying for the kinds of training and necessary dimensions in order for, in a very kind of appropriate way, for these new directives and acts and regulations to effectively be rolled out in workplaces, including in the platform economy. So.
Okay, many questions in one question. So first of all, thank you for bringing up the issue about future-proof, because this was really one fundamental issue that we have asked ourselves all the way along, even in the negotiations, how to write a piece of legislation that is future-proof in an area which changes. One specific example is the Commission proposal didn't foresee, for instance, an article on intermediaries. And it was actually both member states and Parliament that brought this up, because in between the time that we did the study and prepared the draft, the situation had evolved already. So you see, this is really a concern that we had all along, and every single word was really metered, looked really very intensively. Will this fly also in a future context that we don't know today? So then, of course, this will create adjustments, and the transposition and the implementation actually of the directive. And that's why there is a specific article in there about supporting measures. So it is about providing guidance for the platforms, for the persons that are working on platforms, for social partners to understand and implement the legal presumptions, but also how algorithms, because it's one thing to receive information about the monitoring and the decision-making that has been taken through algorithms, but then it's clear you need to be able to understand what the information it's given to you. So the draft directive sets out clearly that it should be provided in clear and simple language, but it's clear that there will be also an effort to learn all of these, and also the enforcement. So the controls can only be effective and efficient if you know what you are talking about when you are, and that is why also member states are asked to provide for appropriate training so that these things can help. So I think this will be really an exercise in ensuring that in the implementation these important aspects keep front center stage. Then on discrimination and bias, I think yes, the directive sets it out very clearly that there should be no discrimination, but it's also clear that sometimes AI has some intrinsic bias because it reflects the input that is given, and probably the State Secretary can answer much better than this. But from the EU point of view, I would like to say that we are really pushing a lot about having, for instance, gender balance and diversity in IT specialists. And why this is so important? Because the way you approach things, you need to have different ways of seeing a plurality of visions to ensure that there is not just one way, one bias. And that's why it's so important that everybody engages in IT, different backgrounds, gender, women and men. We have basically only 1 out of 5 IT specialist is a woman. That's not enough. We need more diversity in that, and that's really a concern that is out there. And the objective that the union has is to reach 20 million IT specialists in the EU by 2030, and we would like half of them to be women.
So many questions, so good responses. I will try to be short and concrete and maybe add additional flavor. When it comes to diversity in the expertise, I have to say that I fully support it. And there is, for example, an attitude of Mr. Elon Musk, for sure, much smarter than most of us here and much more successful, and one of the New World creators in a way. He says, I look only for the capacity and the integrity of the person, and I don't want to go into if he's a man, woman, or any sexual orientation or something like that. And this is a quite wide topic at this moment in the world, and it interflects into all discussions, you know. But we have to look, as nature created us, that theme of mix of the men and women and with whatever different qualities can be much better than X number of the best persons, you know. And this is what we have in mind, and this is why we also, for example, in the ministry work a lot on the involving women in STEM, and we have quite good results now with almost 30% of women in the area working, and we're happy for that. We should work further on that. And for the AI and the usage of AI, and when it comes to the human decisions, I would respond like an engineer. And topics are now not so pure engineering, but when machine or a robot or any system becomes so good in what it's doing that it's obviously better than people working the same job, then we should all clearly say, yes, we should use it. And then it will happen by itself. You will see, for example, driverless cars. It will happen. It's just a matter of time. And we will have ethical and other debates on should AI driver have decided to go left or right in a moment of collision. But Isaac Asimov wrote a lot about this in the robotics when it didn't even exist, you know. But those will be debates. But point is also, as the decision you mentioned, decision for the firing people, very, very nice. But what AI can provide, the set of data for the human to decide, because definitely I'm not sure that we are going to have soul from the AI, and for the some decisions that require emotions, and we do work by emotions, it will never happen. So when we write the legislation, let's try to put the machines to do their job, in which they are better than us, and let us make decisions by driving onto our soul and our emotions, etc.
Thank you very much. One last question and then.
Thank you very much. So my question is about the Platform Work Directive. You presented in detail what's in the directive, and thanks for that. I'm actually wondering what's not in the directive, but perhaps was unfolding during the negotiation process. So specifically, what role the whole process of negotiating, agreeing of the directive might have on the position and role that platforms themselves take in the landscape of labor market and social policy. So just to provide 2 sentences of context, we know that platforms abstain from the role of the employer. They clearly say, we are not employer, it's not our game, so to say. Labor regulation, labor law, right? They would be quite vocal and quite clear about that. Whereas the directive, first of all, ended in at least calling part of that business model or sector employers. But during the consultation process, platforms refused to join employer associations. So the lobbying that was done by social partners on the worker side, on the employer side, platforms were not on the employer side. They kind of stayed outside. But what I noticed is that they did form their own associations at EU level. So there was one for ride-hailing platforms, there was one for food delivery. So what is your impression? Are we moving a step closer to having platforms indeed as some sort of a social partner that can have an association? It was almost the business or employer association, and indeed fulfill the role that is one of those standard roles, employers, workers, and governments. Thank you.
Thank you. In the preparation, obviously, and during the negotiations, of course, we listened to everybody. We had in the preparation several meetings with platform workers and several meetings with representatives of the various digital labor platforms or representatives. and with the business organizations. So we really try, when we prepare a legislation in the EU, to have a evidence-based approach, and that's why we really take care to consult social partners, but also more broadly public opinion. And then, of course, we carry out several studies. Now, in Europe, and particularly in the employment chapter of the treaty, we have a specific procedure that concerns consultation of social partners. And the first step to actually do some legislation in the employment field is to consult social partners and ask them whether they want to engage into negotiations, to do their agreement themselves, and then this is then put into EU legislations. In this case, social partners did not agree, and that's why the Commission came forward with the proposal.